This lecture series is sponsored by the Universal Theosophy website and by students from the United Lodge of Theosophists in Los Angeles. So we are students, not experts, but we'll do the best we can to present theosophic views on a wide variety of topics, and this is human solidarity, certainly an essential one. The first of these talks was 2 weeks ago on human solidarity, the one family. The subtitle was The Ties That Bind, the Poison That Divides. And we heard talks on the subject of the love of humanity, on racism, classism, and genderism, those things that can divide and provide obstacles for us. Last week, the second in the series on the human solidarity, one family, was coming together. And we heard talks on building a nucleus of a universal brotherhood and sisterhood, and on the promise and pitfalls of spiritual communities. So today we'll have two presentations with some readings. Following both presentations, there will be whatever time is left over. About 11:30 will be used for questions and comments. You can either put a question or comment in the chat, or if you would please raise your hands, the Zoom hand raising tool to ask a question or make a comment. As a reminder, please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking during the Q&A session. So with that, we will go to our first topic, envisioning the civilization of the future.
Envisioning the civilization of the future. The civilization of the future holds the promise of a harmonious and sustainable world, deeply rooted in enlightened humanistic values. This vision is shaped by the wisdom of theosophical thinkers such as H.P. Blavatsky, William Q. Judge, Robert Crosbie, Mahatma Gandhi, and by the transcendentalist thinkers such as Emerson and Thoreau, and by economic and visionary thinkers such as E.F. Schumacher and Buckminster Fuller, among others. All of these individuals advocated for a profound shift in the way we live, in the way we think, and in the way we relate to one another, and in the way we interact with our environment. Armed with the potent seed ideas these great thinkers have offered, we will reshape the future based on theosophical and Aquarian principles, moving step by step from the potential to the possible to the actual. To prepare for this journey, we have to do a few things. First, we should take a moment to acknowledge the historical record. When examined, we find that civilization as a whole has markedly improved on every measure of well-being. There has been an overall reduction in extreme poverty, an increase in the age of mortality, an expansion of freedoms, an increase in literacy rates, and in the availability of education. Of course, there are always places and situations one can point out to show where there have been declines in one or a number of these categories. But overall, by every measure, the global population is much better off now than it was 100 or 200 or 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. This fact alone should encourage us to see that the future is more likely to progress in a positive way. 2, we should also take a moment to dismiss our cynicism. Every generation seems to become cynical at a certain point and adopt the attitude that the world, culture, and politics are on the decline. And while this might partly be true now, it's also a fact that our brains are wired to respond to threats. Sensational and shockingly negative news stories bring about that heightened arousal state our brains are on alert for, while neutral or good news doesn't register in our brains with the same intensity. Without consciously counteracting cynicism, it might become a tendency towards negativity. And third, we also want to actively encourage positive and constructive visions of the future. We should participate in indulging creative thought and consequential themes. Meditation on universal brotherhood, spiritual evolution, compassion, and ethics are a potent talisman against a bias towards negativity and offers a compass to navigate through the ethical, existential, and spiritual complexities with which we are faced. When seed ideas are germinated, they form a crystallized matrix in which others can join, and where all of humanity is included in the vision, the power behind constructive thought is multiplied. What might a theosophical future look like? A future based on theosophical ideals and values is a world where the sacred mixes with the mundane, where sacred geometry might be applied to the distribution of energy, where karmic principles become an inextricable part of the legal system, where quantum healing technologies might be used to manipulate energy fields for healing and for education, where dynamic designs might be used to purify water, where ecology and architecture intersect in self-sustaining and ecologically harmonious homes and buildings, where meditation and music might be used to facilitate the growth of crops, and where virtual reality ashrams unite devotees miles apart. These are just some possible examples where the intersection of spiritual ideals might impact everyday life. A foundation based on universal brotherhood and spiritual evolution. A theosophical future will be based on knowledge of the divine nature, on universal brotherhood, freedom of thought, and respect for all peoples, regardless of race, class, creed, sex, condition, or organization. Universal justice, compassion, and concord are values that are ever present in the Akashic light and have never been absent on the earth. Recognizing the correspondences between the celestial and the terrestrial is the beginning of wisdom. There are individuals who have shown forth this divine light regardless of time period or circumstance. Ralph Waldo Emerson and the other transcendentalists, for example, held the belief that each person contains infinite and godlike potential. Emerson asserted that God's presence is inherent in both humanity and nature, and can best be sensed through intuition rather than reason. He highlighted nature as a creative, dynamic force in which people could discover their true selves and commune with the supernatural. A theosophical future will have these ideals built in and will provide both time and space in each person's life for meditation, intuition, and communion with nature. Another shining example of universal brotherhood in action was Gandhi, whose core ideals were satyagraha and ahimsa, or truth and nonviolence, compassion and kindness. Gandhi taught that truth and nonviolence at the highest level of experience merges and becomes one with God. He talked about nonviolence and drawing the larger circle to include all of humanity. Instead of removing himself from society, he sought to change it from within. And this is how the civilization of the future will be built, from within outwards. A core tenet of a theosophical future rests on the truths of spiritual evolution. This concept will be deeply embedded in educational systems, societal norms, and individual pursuits. The ultimate aim of life will not just be material prosperity, but spiritual enlightenment. Science and spirituality will not be viewed as mutually exclusive, but will be viewed as complementary paths to understanding the nature of reality. According to H.P. Blavatsky, the evolution of humanity is intrinsically connected to individual spiritual advancement. In The Secret Doctrine, she laid the foundation for the human journey, expounding upon a cyclic evolutionary process she called the Great Wheel, or in other words, that human souls are on an eternal pilgrimage moving through cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. In a society informed by the ideal of a progression to higher states of being, institutions will aim to facilitate this journey. Schools will not merely impart facts, but help students cultivate inner virtues. personal development will be inextricably linked with spiritual evolution, making life a meaningful journey rather than just a series of random events. In H.P. Blavatsky's Voice of the Silence, it says that enlightenment is not an end, but a beginning of a greater, unselfish work. Universal brotherhood will be an imperative for survival. The notion of the fundamental unity of all life will translate into global efforts towards peace, ecological sustainability, and social justice. Racial, ethnic, and national divisions will be minimized in favor of recognizing the spiritual unity of all peoples. Likewise, humanity's relationship with the environment will be seen through the lens of interdependence and interconnectedness, leading to more sustainable living. Robert Crosbie articulated the belief that humanity's future hinges on recognizing this universal interconnectedness. According to him, universal brotherhood was not a utopian vision, but an esoteric reality. Understanding the interconnectedness of all of existence is the key to solving many of the challenges that humanity faces. And when we act on the understanding that all is one, systemic challenges like inequality, environmental degradation, and conflict may find lasting solutions. These perspectives do not offer an escapist spiritual route, but rather encourage a deeper engagement with worldly challenges. As clarified in the Bhagavad Gita, the world is not renounced, but understood and transformed through right action. The call is not for aesthetic withdrawal, but for a spiritually enlightened activism. Karma, ethical, and social responsibility will be central concepts in the legal and moral fabric of society. Given that one's actions have spiritual consequences that go beyond a single lifetime, there will be a strong emphasis on ethical and altruistic behavior. Systems of justice will incorporate more rehabilitative and restorative approaches rather than purely punitive. For humanity, our collective actions will be guided by individual responsibility and a sense of universal duty, and will forge the contours of our collective future. In this future civilization, the principles of truth and nonviolence that Gandhi espoused will underpin social systems, prioritizing empathy, justice, and equality. Nonviolence will be the cornerstone of conflict resolution, fostering dialogue and cooperation instead of aggression. Social institutions will work tirelessly to eliminate poverty, discrimination, and inequality. Gandhi's concept of sarvodaya, the upliftment of all, will inspire policies aimed at ensuring every individual's well-being, including access to education, healthcare, clean water, and nutritious food as basic human rights. Economic systems will be reimagined to minimize disparities and promote sustainable livelihoods. Education and learning. Truth and nonviolence will extend into the classroom, where the foundations of education will be ethics fused with wisdom. Wisdom traditions from around the world will be highly esteemed and incorporated into the curriculum, including the reading and study of seminal devotional works. Families, schools, and communities will foster the integration of mindful practices like meditation, movement, yoga, and rites of passage into everyday life. Stress management, meditation, guided imagery, physical exercise, visual art expression, as well as music, dance, and theater will be facets of educating the whole person, integrating the body and the mind into a single unit. Personalized learning systems utilizing an ethical artificial intelligence or AI algorithm will not only improve test scores, but will help students cultivate virtues like empathy, wisdom, and spiritual insight. Schools will allow for silence, contemplation, and harmonious sound, to enhance learning. Certain vibrations which induce alpha waves in the brain could be used to augment learning and provide an individually tailored but equitable learning environment. The economy and economic life in a theosophical future. How will economics work in a theosophical future based on brotherhood and interconnectedness? Currently, consumer spending makes up the lion's share of GDP, so boosting consumer spending is seen as the best measure of economic growth. But in a theosophically based future, economics will be aligned with spiritual and ethical principles, serving the long-term ideals of spiritual evolution rather than exclusively short-term material consumption. Take E.F. Schumacher's perspective from his seminal book, Buddhist Economics, as an example. He focused on small, simple, and sustainable development, or, quote, economics as if people mattered, unquote. He felt that contemporary economic systems of growth at any cost were unsustainable in the long run, and that economics should benefit all rather than a select few. He said, quote, an entirely new economic system of thought is needed, a system based on attention to people and not primarily on attention to goods, summed up in the phrase, production by the masses rather than mass production, unquote. Schumacher maintained that solutions cannot be a one-size-fits-all proposition, and that any real and lasting change should always be developed within an individual context, taking each community's specific situation into account. While economists have traditionally been interested in goods, the Buddhist economic point of view is mainly interested in liberation. Buddhism has been called the middle way and therefore supports physical well-being as much as it emphasizes emancipation. It is not wealth that stands in the way of liberation, but the attachment to wealth, not the enjoyment of pleasurable things, but the craving for them. The keynote of Buddhist economics, therefore, is simplicity and nonviolence. From an economist's point of view, the marvel of the Buddhist economic way of life, or the middle way, is the utter rationality of its pattern. Amazingly small means leading to extraordinarily satisfactory results. Schumacher took the function of work to be at least threefold. First, to give the worker a chance to utilize and develop his faculties. Then, to enable him to overcome his ego-centeredness by joining with other people in a common task. And finally, to bring forth the goods and services needed for his becoming. A person's character is partly formed by his or her work, and work properly conducted in conditions of human dignity and freedom, this kind of work on behalf of all, blesses those who do it, and equally so their products. The Indian philosopher and economist J.C. Kumarappa summed up the matter as follows. If the nature of the work is properly appreciated and applied, it will stand in the same relation to the higher faculties as food is to the physical body. It nourishes and enlivens the higher man and urges him to produce the best he is capable of. It directs his free will along the proper course and disciplines the animal in him into progressive channels. It furnishes an excellent background for man to develop his personality. Schumacher remarked that climate change is the result of what he called infinite growth of material consumption at the expense of the planet's resources. And this desire for infinite growth has resulted in catastrophic effects for communities around the world. His small is beautiful approach would help communities facing hardship change their world for the better. By scaling projects up to meet complex situations and influence the change of greater systems, small groups could play a part in creating meaningful changes, whether this took place through projects that created jobs, by improving incomes, by improving health and sanitation, or through protecting communities from disaster. Schumacher's principles provide a guide towards localism and sustainability. Communities will prioritize small, locally owned businesses and cooperative enterprises, reducing reliance on global conglomerates. This approach will not only bolster local economies, but also reduce environmental strain by minimizing the long-distance transportation of goods. He called for appropriate technology, which will ensure that technological advancement aligns with human and environmental values. Rather than pursuing ever more complex solutions, the civilization of the future will prioritize technologies that serve human well-being and minimize ecological disruption. Schumacher pointed out that life based on renewable fuels is living on the earth parasitically, living on capital instead of income. Such a way of life cannot be sustained or justified as a temporary expedient. Non-renewable fuels are unevenly distributed over the globe and limited in quantity, and their exploitation is an act of violence against nature, which will almost inevitably lead to violence among men. One of the problems Schumacher saw with modern economics was that it does not distinguish between renewable and non-renewable resources. Its method is to equalize and quantify everything by means of a price. Thus, taking various alternative fuels, the only difference between them recognized by modern economics is their relative cost per unit. The cheapest is automatically the one to be preferred, and to do otherwise would be irrational and uneconomic. But from a Buddhist economics point of view, the consequences of non-renewable and renewable cannot be overlooked. Non-renewable resources must be used only if they're indispensable, and then only with meticulous concern for conservation. Using them otherwise is an act of violence. Schumacher emphasized the importance of human well-being over relentless economic growth. In a future civilization, we must adopt economic systems that prioritize the satisfaction of human needs in coordination with the preservation of the environment. This means promoting local economies, reducing waste, and embracing resource-efficient technologies. By embracing these principles, we will create a society that values the well-being of all of its members and respects the ecological boundaries of our planet. Gandhi's treatise on Indian Home Rule offers similarly profound insights based on an ethical foundation. He advocated for self-reliance, Swadeshi, or localism, to reduce our dependence on resource-intensive global supply chains. Gandhi's principles value simplicity, spiritual growth, and the well-being of every individual. Technology aligned with spirituality and technological harmony. In a theosophical future, technology will be aligned with spiritual and ethical principles, ensuring that advancements serve the higher purpose of spiritual evolution. Take Buckminster Fuller as an example. Fuller was a futurist, renowned architect, inventor, and visionary thinker who challenged the status quo with what he called anticipatory design. He challenged himself to create sustainable objects that could serve the greatest number of people with the least amount of energy and material. He believed in the power of design and technology to address the world's challenges. As a young man, Fuller experienced a spiritual epiphany, during which he received a direction from his higher self. Because of this peak experience, he decided to devote his life to helping humanity. He conducted the rest of his life as an experiment, calling himself Guinea Pig B. From that point on, Fuller refused to work for any corporate organization. He wanted to see what one man could accomplish on his own. He reasoned that the universe would naturally support activities that fostered its own evolution. So he dedicated all his efforts to serving humanity instead of making money. His brilliant ideas and influence have extended throughout the world. His method was to begin with first principles and then to rely on his intuitions. He rejected conforming to the accepted wisdom, quote unquote, of the day, and used the natural world as a model and inspiration, knowing that nature always chooses the most efficient path. Fuller also believed that it was futile to change anyone's mind about anything. However, if one created an object that was obviously the best tool for a given purpose, people would naturally adopt it. He felt that the best path forward was to alter the human environment in some way that led to change. The most well-known design Fuller invented was the geodesic dome. It uses the least amount of material to create the largest volume of enclosed space. His dome is composed of 20 triangulated faces with 5-sided hubs. Geodesic domes are known to create a healthy atmospheric habitat and can be scaled up even to city size. Their potential has not yet been fully tapped, but they're likely to be used in the future. Architectural technologies such as the geodesic dome will incorporate theosophical principles influenced by sacred geometry and esoteric symbolism to build structures that are not only functional but spiritually harmonious. Smart, self-sustaining, ecologically harmonious designs will be the norm, in accordance with the importance of harmony and balance in all things. Fuller's concept of spaceship Earth emphasized the interconnectedness of all human beings, highlighting the necessity of collaboration and cooperation. In his vision, we will harness advanced technology to eliminate poverty and scarcity. Harnessing cutting-edge technologies will create energy-efficient, eco-friendly cities with self-sustaining infrastructure, renewable energy sources, advanced recycling systems, and use innovative materials. Technology aligned with spirituality could manifest in various ways, from ethical AI systems based on the principles of karma to ecological technologies that sustain the environment rather than deplete it. Technology will not need to be rejected. The concept of technological harmony, or aligning technology with spiritual values, represents an intriguing frontier. While modern technology often emphasizes efficiency, productivity, and profit, a theosophically inspired society of the future will aim for technologies that not only improve life materially, but also are consistent with spiritual and ethical principles. And here are some ways that might manifest. Ethical artificial intelligence systems. In a future theosophical civilization, artificial intelligence systems could be designed to incorporate ethical decision-making based on the principles of karma and universal brotherhood. This could result in AI systems that are programmed to make decisions that have the best long-term outcomes for all. Algorithms could be programmed to make choices that are not solely based on efficiency or profit, but on the ethical consequences of actions. For example, in resource allocation scenarios, an AI system might consider how to equitably distribute resources among a population, emphasizing long-term well-being. In supply chain logistics, AI systems would favor suppliers that adhere to ethical labor practices and sustainable manufacturing, even if they are not necessarily the cheapest option. Essentially, the AI will understand the karmic implications of supporting unethical practices and choose options that are beneficial in a universal sense. Emphasizing the interconnectedness of all life, an ethical AI system will be built on principles of transparency and openness. with decisions clearly explained and justifiable within an ethical framework. Blockchain technology or similar decentralized technologies will be employed to ensure that ethical decisions are openly documented and immutable. Ethical AI systems will be learning continuously, updating its ethical frameworks with the evolving collective understanding of the underlying principles of the universe, such as cycles, karma, and dharma. As humans collectively evolve and attain greater spiritual insights, so will the AI systems that serve them. This would allow AI to become a partner in the collective quest for spiritual evolution and universal well-being. It will consider factors that extend far beyond material considerations, shaping a world in alignment with wisdom traditions. Other technologies that can be informed by theosophical principles and augmented by an ethical AI platform used to assist humanity live in a better future include holistic agriculture, harmonious self-sustaining architecture, and non-exploitative resource extraction. Another way technology might help humanity is through mindfulness and well-being apps. Building upon the spiritual tenets of inner growth and self-awareness, apps and devices that assist in mindfulness, meditation, and overall mental and emotional well-being will become mainstream. In the future, the design and function of mindfulness and well-being apps will transcend stress relief or momentary tranquility. These apps will foster genuine growth, ethical discernment, and foster universal brotherhood. Such well-being apps will offer modules that focus on emotional intelligence, teaching users how to manage their emotions in a way that fosters spiritual growth and better interpersonal relationships. Skills like empathy, self-awareness, and emotional regulation would be taught as integral components of guided meditations tailored to growing levels of spiritual awareness. Through sophisticated algorithms, such apps will be designed to assist in ethical decision-making. If faced with a moral dilemma, a user would input the parameters of their situation, and the app would offer advice based on the principles of universal brotherhood and karma. These apps will also function as platforms for connecting like-minded individuals for spiritual study and moral support. Meditation guidance apps will access wisdom traditions from all over the world to create meditations tailored to the traditions which are most inspiring to the individuals using the app. Users could have access to a variety of texts, teachings, and interactive lessons designed to foster a deeper understanding of spiritual principles. Users could study at their own pace and engage in dialogues that test and enhance their understanding. Users would have the benefit of all the world's wisdom traditions to draw upon. Holistic health technologies. In the future, holistic health technologies will integrate physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, guided by ethical principles and aligned with natural rhythms and cycles. These holistic health systems will not only track nutritional information, but also the ethical and environmental impact of food choices, suggesting foods that are sustainably cultivated. Diagnostically, a holistic health system will be available to diagnose diseases, not just based on symptoms, but on a holistic view of the individual, incorporating data on emotional states, sleep disturbances, recent life events, and even spiritual practices. Virtual spiritual communities. Virtual reality technologies will offer immersive virtual retreats and pilgrimages to simulate sacred sites and spiritual experiences. These could serve as tools for those who can't physically travel but aspire to transformative spiritual experiences. Virtual libraries and temples of wisdom will be filled with sacred texts as well as meditation and prayer spaces designed according to sacred geometry. Virtual ashrams will offer daily spiritual practices, ethical guidelines, and altruistic activities through a combination of video conferencing, discussion forums, and apps to keep their members engaged. Collaboration networks could operate as platforms where individuals cooperate on altruistic projects. Utilizing blockchain or other secure, transparent technologies, the community could track individual and collective efforts, aiming to create a tangible and positive karmic impact. Virtual communities will be organized to study specific spiritual texts, host discussions, seminars, and lectures featuring distinguished speakers in spirituality and related wisdom traditions. Advanced sensory technology will make these experiences extraordinarily immersive, allowing for a truly transformative experience. Global prayer circles will use synchronized timing to coordinate mass meditation events aimed at specific global issues, like meditating for peace, environmental healing, or supporting a specific cause. In conclusion, the Theosophical civilization of the future, guided by enlightened humanistic values, holds the promise of an equitable, sustainable, and spiritually fulfilling world. By prioritizing spiritual evolution and ethical living as its highest ideals, it will bring humanity together through collaboration, technology, and design used for the benefit of all, while also respecting the ecological limits of our planet. Such a civilization will be rooted in promoting prosperity for all and will emphasize self-reliance, simplicity, and spiritual well-being. By embracing these values and ideals, we will collectively shape a brighter and more harmonious future for generations to come.
Thank you, Kathy. Wow. Take a moment and catch our breaths. It's an amazing overview of how we could envision the civilization of the future based on principles we're familiar with, but with applications that we're just beginning to understand how to apply. A wonderful presentation. Thank you.